I started writing poetry when I was 17, long before I became a Muslim. I didn't become a Muslim until 2004. I went through a period of agnosticism, Buddhism, Christianity, before I became a Muslim. And along the way, I was always writing poetry. But it's interesting to me that the year I became a Muslim was the year I also had first two of my most important books published. And I've had many, well, a fair number of books published since then, where I had almost no success before then, which, you know, I leave to you to interpret. But I certainly have written a lot of secular poetry, a lot of mystical poetry, as well as essays, short stories. And I've written a novel called Sometimes the Police Are Friendly. I'm looking for a publisher for that, which has got a mystical journey inside it. So there's always a mystical element to my writing. It may be more explicit at times or more implicit at times, but it's there. I'm 74 years old. I was born in Canada in 1947. I'm immigrated to England in 1973. And I've lived here ever since. I was nationalized in about 1985, I think. I married in 2004 as well. And my wife, Afifa, has been a great help with my poetry, especially Islamic poetry, and also other writings.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. I noted that you said that all your writings have always had a mystical element to it. Does that predate your Islam?
Yes.
So you okay?
Yes, I wrote mystical Christian poetry, and well, from the age of 10, I've had otherworldly experiences, and I've been trying to include them in my writing as a way of understanding and as a way of expressing what is beyond the obvious, what is beyond the empirical.
And how did you? So these mystical experiences that you had. So is that something that happened in your childhood too? You were saying like
Yes.
from.
Yes.
And how did you understand those at such a young age? What did you make of them?
Well, I was at a Christian boys camp, and I don't think anyone there liked me. And we were in this evening service. It was summer, and there was no roof to this chapel. And when everyone bowed their heads down, I kept my head up for some reason. I've always been a rebel. And I just saw the nature in front of us, the hills, the clouds, and everything transformed, translucent, in a matter of seconds. It was a revelation for me. I've never seen anything like it. And I thought, I'll have to go and tell my vicar about this. Because this justifies all his chatter. So I rushed off to tell him about, and he only remembered me. I was the boy who didn't like the porridge. So I associated it, the experience, with what I was worshiping, but it was on a higher level than what most people were experiencing or what I've been told about or so on. But he denied it. He wouldn't tolerate it. So I learned two things. I learned that I did have spiritual experiences, and who was I going to share them with? You know, that became quite a challenge. Mm-hmm. And it also alienated me in some cases further. And I had to come to terms with that. And that that sort of helped push me towards trying to express whatever it was I was feeling, whatever, you know, mystical or secular or whatever, imagination, whatever, you know, and I pursued it, Imran. I pursued it. I would go out into the woods, you know, I'd go out into the snow and just watch the moon set or the sun rise. I would sit there for hours just watching, feeling I must become receptive to whatever this is, you know, whatever this mysterious thing is. I have to become receptive to it. I have to make an effort. I can't just depend on it coming to me when it feels like it. I have to go out and meet it, you know. So I worked in a hospital as an intensive care unit as an orderly. And that was very significant to me, to experience people dying and experience the human condition when people are at its extremities. And that was very touching and inspirational for me. So I did those kind of things. And then I just decided to come to England because my grandparents were born here. And I got on a ship and traveled across the ocean with no intention of coming back to my homeland. And I got off the boat at Tilbury, and I had a rucksack on my back with a pop tent. And I went to the closest woods I could find. The poor man coming in with his dog saw someone in his woods with a tent, and he was quite shocked. And I just started to walk north. I stayed with a few relatives and places and friends, and I just walked north and north till I got to Kendal in the Lake District. And then I met people who were interested in caring for disabled children. I worked for them as a volunteer for about 2.5 years. And then disabled adults for about 2.5 years somewhere else in the country. And then I went away to Fair Isle in the North Sea and lived there for 10 months in a hut and wrote and experienced the power of nature, you know. And eventually came back and I lived in York, and I decided I was going to be a writer. So I went to, you know, I knew I was going to be a writer, but then I thought I'd better get on with it. And I met people who I could share things with. So that was significant for me.